Hey, folks, welcome to Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. Carlos, there's nothing to talk about this week. We're in the doldrums of the year. There's no football going on. There was no semifinal college football playoff game that I'm aware of. No upset loss by Michigan. No demolishing of the Lions by the Bears. What do we have to talk about today, man? And how are you? And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, Shawn. Obviously, you're in denial after, having to tearfully leave the, 4 seasons in Phoenix after you're getting your spa days.
That's funny that you think of 4 seasons. You're sort of stuck in the 80s. It's like that with Top Gun. It's why you think one of the most,
everything was in the 80s.
Yeah, ridiculously, faux patriotism or faux patriotic movie that's full of misogyny and all that other is much better than the new version. But I'm glad to see you're stuck in the 80s. You think 4 seasons is where it's at.
I'm sure it could have been JW Marriott.
No, I say it at the Hyatt. Yourself. How about that? I say it at the Hyatt with a glass,
the Grand Hyatt
with a glass elevator. Yeah,
yeah, in a concierge level penthouse. Yeah, I'm sure that's why you're in denial that nothing happened to Michigan or the Lions. You didn't even watch the Lions game. Let's be honest, right? Your Betamax wasn't working, so you didn't record the game. You didn't watch it.
No, I did. I watched enough of it. How about that? While I was writing about the Big Ten, getting 2 teams in. I think it's the first time a conference has gotten 2 teams into the semis and not gotten either one to the final game. So the poor beleaguered Big Ten. Where do you want to start though, Carlos?
Let's start with Michigan. Let's start with
the Lions. The Lions are still playing, so they're probably a little bit more relevant. And there's a lot to talk about with that. But you're right, Michigan, because there's the coaching rumors again starting up. Well, not rumors, but legitimate reports about your coach.
Yeah, my man Jim Harbaugh. Once again, it's going to be, and this is the price you pay, right, for excellence. Is they come after your coach, and Harbaugh's prime target. The question is this? Is it real? Is it a negotiating tactic from his side, his agent, himself, whatever? Better his deal. He kind of promised Mitch Albom last year. This wasn't going to be a yearly occurrence, right? He said he told Ward Manuel that. You can't blame
Mitch has that much power.
You don't know. You don't understand how much power Mr. Albom has. Okay?
Did Jim Harbaugh promise Mitch? So it's all about him promising Mitch and not the university.
I think he told Mitch that he told Ward Manuel that it wasn't going to be yearly occurrence.
He promised Mitch. So you worded that the way Skip Bayless worded his tweet after the bill or during the Bills, maybe after the Bills Bengals game Monday night when Mr. Hamlin unfortunately collapsed. Right.
I worded exactly the same as Skip Bayless. Right. Yeah. No, it's I don't know. What do you think? Is this real? Is it smoke? Is there a chance he goes? What do you think?
Well, I don't think he would talk to the owner of the Charlotte. Charlotte. That's where they play Charlotte. It was just in Charlotte at that very stadium. I don't think he'd talk to the owner of the Carolina Panthers if he weren't at least interested. Right? You don't just have that conversation. Or I think he's also had a conversation with the Denver Broncos too, right? Or at least the initial conversation.
I believe they've reached out to him. I don't know if he's had a conversation, but. Who knows? But that's the whole question. What is the conversation? Are you gonna turn down David Tepper, a billionaire, and say, I'm not going to answer this call? Like, who's this on my cell? David Tepper? You're going to say, hi, Mr. Tepper. Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Is it a 1-minute conversation? Well,
no, here's the thing. David Tepper doesn't have Harbaugh's number on speed dial, so they're going through people. So, and when that happens, you're like, okay, I need somebody's number and I'd like to talk. And, and you put out at least some feelers. Maybe Tepper is that entitled that he expects anybody, any human on earth that he calls and take his call. I guess
you're our Jim Harbaugh. You're the star of the Free Press.
I'm not the star of the Free Press. You just talked about Mitch Albom.
When the New York, I don't know who he is, but you're the star. You're the de facto star of the sports department, Shawn. When the New York Times calls you, do you take that call or do you say no? I promise it's not going to be your early thing. I'm going to stay with the Free Press forever.
Yeah, not if I'm not interested. I don't.
You don't talk to them. You don't even answer you don't even say as just a nice gesture of a formality, whatever, saying, oh, thank you. Appreciate the call. Don't know if I'm really that interested, but I don't know, whatever.
I haven't yet.
That's the thing.
Let me do. No, I mean, I don't want to get. No, I mean, in all seriousness,
Kirkland Crawford is listening. By the way,
I know he is. I would not talk to them unless I were serious.
Well, let me tell you this. Okay, that's you. But in the NFL or coaching circles, those guys are straight up mercenaries. They go anywhere that the paycheck's better many, many times. Okay. And we both
you
know,
always think it's about money. It's not about money.
It's not always about money, but it's most of the time, it's about money. We know a lot of people in our business, which is nothing even close to the NFL or college coaching, football coaching. We know a lot of people in our own business who do talk to competitors. And guess what? You get a raise after that. Oftentimes, if you're good enough to be talked to and people are interested, the other side, if you're valuable enough, they're going to say, hey, now they're not going to do it every time. You can't go cry wolf every time. But if it's serious and you are we both know I've known people who had no intention of leaving.
Very few though, right?
But
95% of the people we know who've done that in this business or any business were willing to take the job. Right. I mean, that's just how it works. It's a dangerous game you play. So most people who do that are willing to take the job. They're at a point where they're at least interested. And that's kind of how it works. I mean, maybe there are a few sort of gamblers out there who just want to go play this system because that is how you get raises. But it's risky. There's a lot of risk with that. So
there's some risk with it.
Yeah,
but
because people could say go.
Well, that's the thing. They can say go. But here's the thing, and it goes back to Harbaugh's situation too, is if you feel you have been unfairly compensated or treated, if you were, let's say, a Wolverines coach who had to take a pay cut at one point, let's say you're a Wolverines coach who makes less than the guy, your direct competitor in East Lansing, if you make a little less, there's all these little factors. If you compare yourself, that can be part of it. And yeah, there is the risk of go. Well, guess what? Then you say, I'm not going. I stay, but then, whatever, maybe the relationship is just a little bit damaged, but hey, if you felt this is the only way you could get a better compensation, either money or whatever it is.
I just think it's more, look, I understand money is pretty fundamental, but I think this is more fundamentally not spiritual, but just.
Oh, don't say that.
No, it's just human. It reminds me of there's sort of an underrated movie from I don't remember when it was made, maybe the 90s, maybe
the 80s, where everything's better. The 80s, just admit it.
No. It's called Blast from the Past with Christopher Walken and Brendan Fraser, and I want to say Sissy Spacek. And I don't know if you remember this movie or not. Do you remember this movie?
I remember it sounds very familiar. Yes.
So Christopher Walken. Let me make this quick. Christopher Walken and Sissy Spacek play a couple in the 50s. I don't know if he's some kind of engineer or whatever. He's worried the nuclear bomb's coming, right? It's in the 60s when we were telling kids to get under desks and so forth, like that was going to stop the radioactive fallout. But in any case, yeah, they build an underground bomb shelter and put a time lock on it. They can't get out for 3 decades or 4 decades. They have a son down in this shelter, so he's sheltered, literally sheltered, metaphorically and literally sheltered from the world. Doesn't know anything about the world. It opens up. He goes out into the world and tries to find his way, and he slowly wants to bring his parents out. Anyway, he meets a girl, brings her back down, and for the first time in 40 years, Christopher Walken and Sissy Spacek get to host a dinner party. And he starts to have a birds and bees conversation with his son, played by Brendan Fraser, who at this point is in his late 20s. So it's the first, just to show you how sheltered everything was. And he's talking about how the sperm finds the egg. And Brendan Fraser's, but why? Why? Why does that happen, right? Why? And Christopher Walken says, because it must. And that's the thing, because it's out there. And that's how I think about, I thought this about John Beilein when he went from Michigan to the NBA. He had this great life, all this great success, but the NBA was out there. And it's similar for guys like Jim Harbaugh and who's experienced it, right? And had a lot of success. It's still out there. It's not just the money. He's already making $8 million a year. He'll make a little bit more if he goes to the NFL, maybe make 10, 11, 12, whatever. And I'm not discounting $2 or $3 million, but it's because it's out there and the level of competition. And then you factor in maybe he doesn't like recruiting and all these other reasons, the glad handling with the boosters. There's a lot of that kind of stuff you don't have to deal with in the NFL. So to me, it's not just the money. it's the ultimate form of competition that a lot of coaches are driven by.
That's possible. And he mentioned that when he talked to Mitch, that the reason he went to interview is because, he got so close to winning the Super Bowl, loses it to his brother. So his brother has ultimate bragging rights, obviously, in the family forever until he wins his own Super Bowl. But that's possible. But I would hope that at 59 years old, Jim Harbaugh would understand that, this is really how he's going to be remembered, what he's doing at Michigan, how he can change that program and win a national title. It's his alma mater. He's, how many coaches have won the Super Bowl? So what? So, you win the Super Bowl. Is that going to make you the greatest coach ever? No, it's just, to me, yeah, you're right. There's a lot of other things, and we don't know how much he hates recruiting or glad handing with boosters or answering to 4 different
It's
bosses.
the most meaningful title in that sport. It's the same reason Tom Izzo flirted with the NBA after he won his title at Michigan State. It's the same reason most coaches go that way as opposed to the other way.
But is Bear Bryant any less of a coach than Bill Belichick?
The NFL, but that's not the point. First of all,
it's legacy.
But the NFL wasn't anything what it was back when Bear Bryant was running through. The NFL is changed a lot. It's our
Nick
national.
Saban? Is Nick Saban any worse?
Yeah,
Because
no, he went. You know what Nick Saban did? He won a title at LSU and immediately went to the NFL because he wanted to see what it was. What's that?
And he fell on his face.
But he wanted to see if he could do that. That's the thing. You crawl to walk. And that's what it is. And I really hope one of these days you will sit back and understand what actually drives human beings if they are fed and housed and clothed, right? Once you get those basics out of the way, then what's driving you? What's driving you after that?
We don't know. Well, that's the problem with Harbaugh is the guy's an enigma wrapped in a riddle.
He's not. He's not some complex.
He is.
No, he's not.
That guy has dead shark eyes. You can't tell what he's thinking anytime he... it's like
what are you talking about? He talks about football as the measure of American men. I mean, he's very clear in how he thinks and what he says. Just because he doesn't joke and smile a lot at press conferences, we think he's somehow a riddle. He's not.
Well, but part of it is, and maybe you get a better sense of that.
He's talked about abortion, for goodness sakes. He's not afraid to say what he thinks.
Right. And I respect him for that. But, and do you get a better sense? You're around him more. You get to go to the Grand Vacation Hyatt, whatever, to hang out with him. I don't. But do you get the sense that he enjoys coaching young men and making a difference and teaching them and all that and seeing because in the NFL, they're grown men. You're not really guiding them. They're professionals. You're professionals. It's a job. But in college, it's different. Do you think he gets something more out of that?
I mean, I know he really enjoys the university here, and I know he enjoys the culture of Michigan, and I know he enjoys the teaching. In fact, he talked about this the other day in Arizona that coaching is really teaching, and that's true. But you teach at the NFL too. It's not. I mean,
it's not the same.
But it is the same. It's teaching. It's you don't have control over their lives at night or what they're doing, but the teaching is the teaching. And Dan Campbell talks about the teaching and development and so on and so forth. Every coach loves that. But here's what I also know. I've been around enough high school coaches to know that most of them want to go coach at college. That's just how it is. There becomes a point in your life where maybe you say, you know what? Okay, I'm in this community. If I'm a high school coach, for example, you're in this community, the relationship you have with the parents and the community at large, going into the stores or whatever, and being part of that in a high school in that way that you don't even get in college, right? So each level has its things, but you got to get to a point where you are okay with that and you accept that, and you make a deal with yourself that these things over here that you can affect in ways that don't have much to do with the actual game on the floor, the field, the court, whatever, are outweighed by whatever else you're experiencing out there, right? In the larger sense that you're talking about. And most coaches come to that pivot, that fork on the road where they have to decide what they're going to chase, and then are they okay? What was the name of the coach in Farmington Hills who just retired within the last several? Yeah, Harrington. Like that, you can become like that, but most coaches, even in high school, don't become like that, right? So my guess is at some point he considered college, and then had to weigh that all out and decided he was going to stay where he's going to stay. But that's just, it's innate in 98% of coaches. Do you want to get to the next level? And it's rarely about money.
He's been at the next level. He just hasn't won the championship. And I think he should know. And the thing with the 49ers, that experience, that wasn't a great experience the way it ended up. The GM had a little more power than he did. Harbaugh has a strong, unique personality that it's an acquired taste, and it's, unless he's given complete carte blanche basically to run the team and make a lot of personnel decisions, it's not going to be a smooth path for him in the NFL. I think he knows that. I think he knows there's, in college, you shake enough hands, you win, everybody, you're good. The AD, but
you can't win everywhere. And look what Michigan. Okay, well, let's get to this in a second. Remind me to get back to the recruiting in Michigan, because that's a good point, Carlos. But real quickly, in the NFL, you're right. You got to have the right situation, and we've seen in these reports that he wants to go to not a specific place, but a place with specific qualities or a specific kind of roster where he thinks he has a better chance at winning, because you're right. He's not going to be, he's almost 60. You don't know how long he's going to coach. There's tremendous pressure to turn it around quickly in any market. And that presents its challenges. And you're right. He's kind of, the cliche about him is he wears his welcome out.
Right.
After a few years, right? Because he's, he comes in, he gets guy. It reminds me of Doug Collins a little bit. I'm not saying they're the equal level coaches, but Doug Collins was a great rebuilder, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And he would get, wherever he went, the teams immediately got better. And then he was so intense and so passionate, he could only go so far, right?
Yeah.
And then that was it.
And the NFL, and Harbaugh knows this, and I don't even think it matters, because, the leash is really short in the NFL. You can be gone. How long did Matt Rule last? And by the way, Dave Tepper hasn't learned his lesson of hiring a college coach and come in the NFL. But Harbaugh, even if he fails in the NFL, he'll have his pick of jobs pretty much coming back to college if he wants to. He doesn't have to worry about that. And I respect that. If it's true and he really wants to win a Super Bowl and, be the great kind of coach that, Doug Peterson is, of having won a Super Bowl, it's whatever. If you want to scratch that itch, if you have an ego thing that you need to measure yourself against and whatever, but, I would hope that he would stay at Michigan, because that's really where he will make his mark. He can really make a big difference.
Well, and he already has the last couple of years. What's interesting too, and we'll wrap it up with this. I'm curious. I want to get your thought on this. But so he's gone. What's he lost 3 games in the last 2 years? It was 25-3 or something like that. It's the best 2-year stretch in the modern, of Michigan football's program.
Take that, Fritz Chrysler.
Yeah, he's got back-to-back Big Ten titles, back-to-back wins over Ohio State, back-to-back appearances in the college football playoff. And last year got there and realized, there was a pretty considerable gap between the second tier, where Michigan obviously was a year ago, and that top tier, which last year was Georgia. Some years it's Alabama. This year it's a little bit more painful, because TCU was, they were favored over TCU, right?
Yeah.
And you get to that game. We didn't even talk about that game. TCU, though, made the plays when they needed to make them. And that's maybe a different podcast. We'll get Tony Garcia after we can, the fabulous beat writer for us for who covers Michigan football. We can break some of that down. The 1-6 bowl record, what happens with the month off, why Michigan didn't quite look ready. On the other hand, TCU has they may not have as much overall talent. That's debatable, but their top guys were just better. They've got a receiver who's going to be a top 15 pick who made the play that basically sealed the game. Right, 76, 76-yard touchdown run. Pass on a crossing route. And, you can blame Jesse Minter all you want for the blitz and so forth, but Michigan's defensive back was in a position to make a play.
I thought we're getting to TCU next week. What are you
we are.
Game by game box score.
But so, okay, let's just say they beat them. They beat TCU. A lot of fans probably don't agree with this. They weren't going to beat Ohio State again. And I think that we saw that with the way they played Georgia. They weren't going to be either one of those teams, because, again, the talent difference, that was a fluky thing that happened at Columbus in a lot of ways. And
please write a column with
the talent difference
Please write a column saying that.
Well, I was all set to say that, and then they lost to TCU. So really,
you can still write it. Say they even if they'd beaten TCU, they're going to lose to Ohio State.
It really doesn't matter. But yes. So, but my point was he would be right back to where he was a year ago. I think it would have been a better game. I don't think they would have been beaten badly by either team at Georgia or Ohio State. It turns out it was Georgia, but. I think that's the thing, man. So you all these wins these last couple of seasons, and where are they in recruiting? I know they're doing well in the transfer portal, and maybe that's the avenue, but where are they in recruiting? You still need those high-level difference makers. And Michigan didn't have those at the receiver spot this year, right? They had a lot of good players in a lot of places, but they didn't have the receivers to get the separation, and that was really the difference in the game.
Yeah, but I mean, they're in the they're in the semifinal. I mean, they had enough talent, and they got some bad luck, right, with Blake Corum and stuff, and
that hurt for sure.
But they had enough talent. They could have beat
TCU.
To beat TCU, and when TCU beats Georgia, then you're going to think twice about this and say, well, maybe Michigan could have beaten Georgia, and I don't know. You think Georgia's like, I don't know, Alabama in the 60s or something like that. But
no, I don't. I think no.
I know you said they're not quite the Georgia of last year.
They're not.
They're not some unbeatable team.
No, they're not. But even last year's Georgia, as dominant as they were, when Jamison Williams was healthy in the SEC title game, Alabama hung 41 on them on a defense that had 10 or 11 NFL draft first, second, third round picks.
Because Nick Saban knows where his legacy is, and it's at Alabama.
But that's that core. But that's with Bryce Young and Williams and all those guys, and that's what it takes. And here's the question: let's wrap this up with this: can Harbaugh get? He may have that McCarthy. We'll see. It was his first year starter. We'll see what he learned. He actually played great against TCU in a lot of ways, except for those 2 picks, which are pretty big, obviously. But he made a lot of great plays all the game long. I mean, he had 340 yards. And another 80, 90 on the ground. One drive was all him on the legs. He's the reason they didn't get blown out. And
you're going to get more talent. The more you win, the more shine comes on that
He doesn't have it. He doesn't have it in this class. He didn't have it last year's class. It didn't get a bump because of the CFP appearance. And you'll get it. Sometimes coach. That's why Saban left Michigan State. I'm not saying it's the same with Michigan.
Different, much different.
But it's relative though, right? So there's a huge difference between Michigan State recruiting and Michigan. Harbaugh might look at it and say, well, can I recruit like Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia?
Sure. If you can, how is Ohio State different? He hasn't.
They have a top 5 class every year. And if you look at who wins the CFP, it's talent. There's exactly. You hate to say that because coaches matter. No team has won it without that kind of a class year after year, right? They just have.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe somebody will do that. In basketball, you can have a team with those kind of classes like Duke, but they're young. So a team with a bunch of juniors and seniors that are 3-star guys can come, like when Michigan State beat Duke a few years ago and they had Zion Williamson. You know what I mean? But it doesn't happen that way in football.
Yeah. Well, we're wrapping it up. So, agreed. He needs to do better in his recruiting, but
it's not that he needs to do better. Happen. He's doing well as I don't know.
He's got enough. They should be in the final right now. And that, to me, if you get to the CFP, playoff 2 years in a row, you have enough talent. If you were good enough, you should have been in the final. You have enough talent. That's just not
this year. Not last. Yeah, no, not last year. This year they
doing fine.
They were good enough to beat TCU. I don't know if they were good enough to win it all, but we'll see. All right, let's take a quick break and come back to talk about your Lions. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right, we'll be right back with more Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. Welcome back to Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. Carlos, look, let's talk about your Lions, man. We've been putting this off too long. Michigan's only got half the state or 60% of the state. If you,
it's got all the state. Half wants to love them, half wants to hate them. Yeah,
but it's different. Everybody loves the Lions.
Who doesn't love the Lions right now?
Right, they're America's team right now. What's going on, man? If they actually got into the playoffs, they would become and won a game or two and got on some kind of miracle run. Oh my God, they would totally be America's team.
I'm surprised honestly. I mean, I don't even know if you know where they practice, Shawn. It's in Allen Park. It's next to Dearborn. But usually when a team gets hot like this, we get some, hoity-toity media types, national types who come in and start talking to the players and the coach, and they've got a colorful coach and a pretty interesting team, a fairly interesting team. Don't have a lot of stars.
Team. Yeah, fun team.
But it's a fun team, but it doesn't have a lot of stars. So, but there's a whole Jared Goff redemption thing, and I'm shocked nobody's been around. I haven't seen anybody really. Maybe I missed them, but I haven't seen any big types come in.
I think, Carlos, if they'd beaten the Panthers and had sort of controlled their own
maybe
fate, that maybe it would have been a little bit different. I don't know.
But look at this kind of turnaround. This kind of turnaround doesn't happen certainly not for the Lions, but not all the time in the NFL, and with a fun coach like Campbell. So I'm a little disappointed. I don't know if you can call them America's team, but they've sure been fun to watch.
No, they're not yet. I mean, I'm just having fun. But yeah, if they got really good, I think a lot of people would sort of enjoy it. And partly because of Campbell, partly because you know how the country is. I mean, I don't know if you are watching, well, you're too wrapped up in your Dodgers and your Kings for hockey and baseball, but maybe there's a sporting event you're watching or a playoffs you're watching that you enjoy the sport but don't have a team. You might gravitate towards the underdog team. A lot of people do that. So it would. I think the Lions would be beloved for second.
I think the Lions definitely have growing up not here, the way I always thought of the Lions. I mean, in my era, it was Barry Sanders, but also the Thanksgiving game. I think they remain in the national consciousness because of that game. You always see it's the first one of the day, and you think of them as kind of lovable losers to some extent.
Exactly. And that would translate well, don't you think, if they actually got good?
It would. And this is, and by the way, if any of the national writers out there are listening, come on in. We'll welcome you. Everybody does the same story. They come in, they go find some Ford factory worker at a bar, and they talk to them about how different this season is and how it's a blue collar town and blah, blah, blah. They've done it before. It's shooting fish in a barrel, folks. Just come on into Detroit. You can have some, the Lions can get some national exposure.
Yeah. You think so?
Oh yeah. It's been done many times. It's like a copy paste story that you read in all the national outlets.
So let me ask you this. Is thorough as that win was on Thursday? Excuse me. You mentioned Thanksgiving, so it's making me think of Thursday. Yeah. I had Thanksgiving on my mind. Sunday, as fun as that was, I think, for Lions fans on both sides of the ball, especially sacking Justin Fields after watching mobile quarterbacks for years destroy this team. I think that was particularly gratifying for Lions fans. But what do you think that there's? Do you think it's a little bit muted Sunday night because there's a pretty good chance that Seattle will have already taken the Lions' potential spot?
Oh yeah, I guess Stafford's saying he's going to play now in that game. So it would be completely. I think this happened before, where a few years ago, I remember when Kirk Cousins was playing in Washington, and it was something that came down to if Washington had won, then that game would have been for everything. I think it was the Packers as well. It was at Ford Field, and it didn't happen. The fate was decided ahead of time. But this would totally be Lions, right? The Seahawks win and it's irrelevant. So, and then of course they're going to win. So it'll be irrelevant.
Well, what would be the same old Lions, which we don't really like that phrase in this podcast here. But,
I love it, but you don't like it for some reason.
What would be the same old Lions would be for Stafford to come back, give a gift to his his longtime professional home by beating the Seahawks, and then for the Lions to lose at the last minute in Green Bay.
That would be
the same old Lions. Yeah,
that would be same old Lions for sure. That would be. I don't know, what would that do? What would that do to this fan base, Shawn? What would your fan base is your sons? That's what you think of them. By the way, anytime Shawn writes a column and talks about the fans, he always talks about the fans, talking about his kids. So
no, I've been writing about fans forever, and my sons have only been Lions fans in that way for 5-6 years. So it's all about the history.
I don't want to think about what they would do. They would just be apoplectic. They would just inconsolable.
You're talking about Lions? No. You're talking about Lions fans in general. So they would they would really sting in a moment. But I think it depends on how it went down. Like like if it were a decision, a clock management, if it were some kind of decision where there's a pass or a throw and the one doesn't work out and they could have gone the other, whatever, people are going to replay that over and over and over and over. But I think eventually, Carlos, the sting would subside and people would say, okay, look, we just played basically a play-in for a playoff game, and that's progress. But it would take a while to get there.
A few years, yeah. But no, it doesn't matter if they get blown out, if it's a bad decision, if it's a 10-second runoff, Shawn, an Aaron Rodgers to Richard Rodgers in the end zone. It doesn't matter. If Stafford finally does something to help the Lions, to hopefully win a playoff game or get into the playoffs, whatever. I think he made a joke about it too. And they blow that. And yes, it's Green Bay and all that, where all hope dies for the Lions. But if that happens, it's like Michigan losing to Ohio State in the college football championship. It'd be so hard. It'd be for years. This would be. They still talk about Matt Flynn, beating them. It's just. Well,
no. Think about this. People were really bummed after the Carolina loss, and I know it's not the history with the Green Bay, but the fan base was really, really bummed because I think they thought that was the shot at the playoffs, right?
Yes.
And they expected to win at that point because they were rolling. So I think it was sort of stunning how they got run over in that game. And
but you don't understand how this fan base just despises Aaron Rodgers. Everybody in the NFC North despises Aaron Rodgers.
Country despises Aaron Rodgers.
Well, other than the whole country except the UP, except Wisconsin and the Upper Peninsula.
Well, the Upper Peninsula is connected to Wisconsin, right? So
yeah, they're as soon as you cross the bridge, man, it's Packer country.
Not quite. We were talking about Izzo earlier. We mentioned him. He grew up a Packer fan. All those people are Packers. Absolutely. It's just like on the there used to be a lot of Bears fans on the lower west side of the state.
Yeah.
All the people Cubs fans. Yeah, exactly. And Cubs fans over there too.
Yeah. Do you blame them?
Well, I don't know. It's amazing. Well, we don't need to get into all that regional. You're a Dodgers fan. You grew up nowhere near LA. So how do you explain that one?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, LA County. Okay.
I thought you were in Palm Springs.
You didn't. I didn't grow up in the Swingers movie, so I don't. It doesn't count.
No, you grew up in Palm Springs, didn't you? Out by the windmills.
Up in the we didn't have windmills back then.
I know there were no windmills back then. I know the turbines. I shouldn't call them windmills. In any case, so let's give the readers a little inside baseball here, because they really don't care about our football takes. They've been reading you for years. They know that you write about who knows. I just write about the fans. If they want football stuff, they go to Dave Burkett. So let's give them a little bit of inside baseball, only football. I want to know how you're traveling, where you're going, what you're doing, where you're staying, and are you worried about the weather at all? Because it can get dicey. The nice thing is because we have such a nice big Delta hub here in Detroit, you can get direct flights. So that's always nice to small markets. So what you doing? What's the itinerary, man?
Oh, for the Packers game?
Yeah.
You got to go to the Four Seasons, the Hyatt, Grand Hyatt.
I stay at a Fairfield and fly into Milwaukee and drive in because it's cheaper. But go ahead.
Yeah,
let me hear about your airfare into Appleton.
I'm going to Appleton. Yeah, I'm going to fabulous downtown exotic Appleton, which is about 30 minutes, south, whatever.
So you didn't fly into Green Bay. Did you look into flying into Green Bay?
I did, and the problem was we didn't know the dates and the times or whatever. The dates mostly, they could have played Saturday, but they're going to end up playing Sunday. So we had to wait it's a complication, book canceling flights. So I waited until we knew the time or the day rather. And then by then all the Green Bay flights were gone. So, and there's small planes that go into those airports, both of them. So there's not a lot of seats.
Yeah. They're not Cessnas though, but yes, but they're not. Yeah. And so where are you going to stay? You're going to stay in Appleton?
Yeah. Staying in a, I don't know what it is. It's a Hilton property.
Okay. All right.
It's not a Hilton, but it's a Hilton, whatever, like a Fairfield equivalent. I can't think of the name of their Fairfield or their Courtyard equivalent. They're nice. This is what I want the listeners to know, though. The idea that you, Mr. Control Everything,
are going to be, because it's a Sunday night game in Green Bay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Central Time. And of course, your body will be on Eastern Time. I don't know what time's the kickoff? 8 o'clock Eastern?
8:25 or something.
So 7:25 local. So 3 hours. So that takes you to 10:30, 11. I mean, you're probably going to walk out after your second column at, I don't know, one at the earliest, right?
Yeah.
One at the earliest if you're lucky. Are you prepared to make that drive in the night back to Appleton? I'm just excited that you're going to actually have to grind something like that out.
My Lyft driver can make it just fine. Yeah.
Although I want you to be safe.
It's the Lyft drivers in Green Bay, I'm sure, can handle a 30-minute drive to Appleton. I don't think.
You sure you're going to be able to get a Lyft? Dave and I were in Newark 4 or 5 years ago on a Monday night. It was 2 a.m. in Jersey, not Newark, sorry, East Rutherford, walking out and really struggled to find an Uber driver. And that was right next to Manhattan. So just think about that. Just think about. I had trouble getting. I got in late 2 nights ago because the flights were so crazy to Phoenix, as I'm sure a lot of Michigan fans out there know, right? I flew through Tucson. It's funny because there were Michigan fans all over the Tucson airport, and the security people ahead of us were like, "What is it with you? All you people comes from Michigan?" And I kept hearing people say, "Well, there was a game up in Phoenix, and it was $2,000 to go straight to Phoenix, so we're coming through Tucson," which is what I did. And anyway, I got in late. It was delayed Minneapolis. I got in late. It was midnight at Metro, and I struggled to get an Uber there. So I'm just. I might rent a car then. That's if car rentals right now are hard. If anybody travels, they understand that for some reason there's a big shortage. Did you look? I haven't looked, but now that you bring it up, don't assume. Just for my buddy, I want you to at least look. Whatever happens to Dave Briquette will happen to me. That's what I'll tell you. So here's the thing. Dave knows how to handle these things. Yeah, he does. But if you look, I mean, yeah. So in any case, right? I'll get a snowmobile. Yeah. Oh, that'd be nice. That'd be nice. I just like the idea of you walking out of a stadium that late and with a 30-minute drive. That's nice. That's nice. It warms the heart, although I want you to be safe. Oh, thank you. I will. Yeah. And maybe get a little German food. There's some good German food up in those regions. I think there's a Wiener Schnitzel. I'll look for one. Oh, you'll look for a Wiener Schnitzel. All right. Real quickly, because we got to wrap this up. What do you think is going to happen? First of all, do you think the game will be irrelevant for the Lions? Unfortunately, I think so. I think the Seahawks will win. The Rams have a history of winning in Seattle, but I think they'll win. I think Pete Carroll will have his team ready for that team. I don't know all the injury issues. I have to look into that, but even if Stafford comes back, Seahawks should win that game. And then it'll be irrelevant, but I think the Lions will beat the Packers, actually, Shawn. Do you? What about you? I mean, they've been playing. I haven't made. I have to make the pick here in another day or two. But I think if Seattle wins, the Lions win, and if Seattle loses, the Lions lose. And it's not because of any kind of same old Lions. You believe in SOL? That is such an SOL take. No. It's not that. It's I don't know that they're quite ready because that'll just change the pressure. And we saw a little bit of that in New York and the first half, and they kind of got through it because the Jets can't score at all, as we saw in their loss to Seattle. And Dan Campbell talked about that after the game. And then again at Carolina, they had to figure out how to get to kind of handling playing what they were playing for. And then they were fine back home against Chicago. Chicago's not very good. And I just don't, maybe they are. Maybe I'm completely wrong and they'll be fine. But you got to learn how to figure out how to handle that pressure. And I'm not sure they're quite ready for that yet, but I could be completely wrong. I think that, I talked to Taylor Decker about this, and he said that they were really disappointed because they thought the Jets game was the game where they figured out how to overcome the difficulty of pressure, the stage, the pressure, the difficulty, things aren't going great and you still overcome it, which is why the Carolina game was such a disappointment, is because they thought they'd gotten that out of their system and had figured it out. And it was such a letdown.
They will be, I mean, you will be having probably, Newt Rockne after Newt Rockne speeches leading up to this game in the locker room at kickoff, in warmups. I think this game is going to be so much more to the Lions than it will to the Packers, because the Packers make the playoffs all the time, and, they're at home and they know how to win. But the Lions, I mean, it'll be a really interesting test of their mettle.
It will, and it won't be quite the same test if Seattle wins, which we both think they probably should. I mean, it's a hard ass. Seattle's a tough place to win anyway, right?
Yeah, it can be. The Rams, the win there, though. I mean, they do.
No, they do, and and they've had some good teams. But in any case, it's fun that we're talking about that. I mean, it's January, man. We're recording this in January, and this is how we're talking. Have you thought about this? I mean, this is crazy.
I have. Yeah, it's a nice change of pace.
It really is. And here we are coming off the college football playoff, and of course, is Harbaugh going to go or not? Who knows? In any case, look, man, it's good to catch up with you. I know you got to run. You can tell me a quick favorite thing if you want.
Yeah, my favorite thing.
Tell our listeners, not me. This isn't Harbaugh talking about Mitch.
You, Shawn.
No, it's not Harbaugh telling Mitch. You tell the listeners.
My favorite thing is a very simple thing. Is my kids were home, my daughters were home for the first time since Thanksgiving for the first extended time they were home, going away to college, and it was really fun just to have that laughter in the house, the fun, the excitement. Our dog appreciated it. She loves the kids. And, one night at dinner, I don't know how we got into this, but we were talking about The Rock and doing a little eyebrow raise that he does. And one of my daughters was doing it, and our other daughter can't raise her eyebrow that one way he does it when he was The Rock. And, but it was just hilarious. Everybody was trying to raise their eyebrow, and some people could and some people couldn't. And, you really, as you know, you miss those times, you miss those moments, having those kids around and the family time. So it was just a little schmaltzy, a little Windsorian, but I really liked it.
Yeah, that's really nice. And I'm glad that they were home. That sounds lovely. I like the idea of you smiling, like actually for real smiling.
I don't like doing it.
And laughing, just a sincere laugh that warms the, as Harbaugh would say, the cockles of the heart. So I would say you mentioned the dog. It reminded me real quickly. This is one of my favorite things. If I can say this real quickly, there was a great Twitter feed about African Americans and cats, and why they don't like cats. And this is from a black guy, I think, saying, "Hey, we don't like cats." And then this long thread about, of course, we love cats, with all these pictures. But the best part was the one guy said that about cats. He said, "Look, we all remember the civil rights, and those weren't cats standing next to with the cops and the fire hoses down in Selma. They were dogs." And if you don't like cats, that means that you have serious control issues. And then there was this awesome thread of all these photos with cats that were both black and white, saying, "Oh, that cat reads as white, but he knows he's black," and this and that. It was fantastic.
For the listeners out there, you don't know this, but Shawn loves cat memes and tweets, and he's all about it.
No, but it was just funny. I especially love the line about it. We remember the civil rights era, and we remember the hoses and the cops and the horses, and we remember the dogs, and we didn't see any cats there. So in any case, but that's not my favorite thing. My favorite thing is a bowl of pozole I had at a little place in Phoenix, north of downtown. I haven't had pozole that great and that long. It's a Mexican. I hate to call it a stew. I guess it sort of is a stew. The broth is it's a soup. It's a really thin broth that's made with pork and usually guajillo chilies and garlic and epazote and all sorts of other delicious stuff. But the main ingredients are pork that's been stewed, and usually pork shoulder and hominy. And then you get a little bowl on the side, and it can vary, but generally cabbage, fresh cut up cabbage and onion, so you get the crunch, and a little bit of lime and cilantro. And this particular place served a little cut up radish. But this bowl of pozole in this little place, and the family was from, trying to remember the state they were from in Mexico. I'm sorry that it escapes me. In any case, I sat there. We visited. They made their home. They made their own tortillas, little soft corn tortillas to dip into the pozole. Oh my God, Carlos! I was just. It was unbelievable. It was my favorite part of the trip.
Oh,
yeah. Just a humble little bowl of just pure goodness. And
your ratatouille moment. I love it.
Warms the soul. So that was my favorite. My favorite thing.
So my kids warm my cockles and the pozole warms your soul. So that's good.
That's right. Yeah. So in any case, all right, man, who do we need to thank so we can get you out of here?
Oh boy. Let's thank our producers, Andrew Hammond and Robin Chan, for doing all the hard work, putting up with us, and executive producers, Kirkland Crawford and Anjanette Delgado, who, man, the mentions are going down on her, but they need to go up again for many reasons.
We don't need to get into those now.
Yeah. Executive editor, the big man, the big kahuna, your BFF out in Phoenix, Peter Bhatia.
Yeah, because we're not going to be able to thank him too much longer. Well, we can always thank him, right? But out of sight, out of mind.
We really think about Peter in a few weeks.
Yeah, out of sight, out of mind. Is that it? All right. Well, look, man. What do we need? People know where to find us, right? I mean, They know where to find you. Yeah. I mean, fine. Go to Spotify. Go to Apple Podcasts. Find us wherever you want. The important thing is to subscribe and then rate us. That really helps. That helps Carlos, because Carlos likes to be heard, and I want Carlos to be heard and seen, and that's why we really need to do that. But mostly, we want to thank you for listening, and I want to thank you, Carlos. It's good to see you, bud. Again, Happy New Year. I will see you soon. If I don't see you before Green Bay, have a great time.
Thanks.
Enjoy Lambeau. Have you been to Lambeau?
First time? No.
Oh, this will be fun. It's a great place. And it'll be lit up at night. So yeah, you might get a little sentimental. That'll be awesome. All right, man. Good to catch up. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week with more Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn.